Halloween Returns by Daniel Miller. 2 decades into the 21st century, and the human race, with its contradictions of innovation and progress colliding with beliefs and power, had become hollow, decadent, destructive, arrogant. Long forgotten had become innocence. So far removed had become the significance of festivities through commercialization. Christmas, Easter, New Year's, so many had become shadows of their former selves, their history and importance watered down. But of all of them, one season has not been treated fondly: Halloween. A pagan tradition frowned upon and turned into a season of gimmicks, cheap scares, and hyper-stylized horror flicks. Every day of every year, people lived their 9-to-5 grind in a topsy-turvy world. The seasons came and went, and still, the masses indulged in negligence through policies, rules, and want of achievements. From within the void between worlds, souls and eyes of ethereal beings scorned and frowned in disappointment upon the mortal earth. This realm was in a permanent state of autumn. A dusky sky hung under a bloodily orange sun, as trees stood leafless, black and tortured, as chilling winds blew dead and crumpled leaves over grounds of stone and dried soil. Gathered around a cauldron, stirred by an elderly corpse, crusty old flesh barely covering bones, a collective of spooky figures stared into the pot as it fumed, bubbled and boiled. The glory days are far, far behind us now, said a picturesque young woman, dressed in a skin-tight black velvet costume with a witch's hat tilted to one side. The mortals have no respect anymore, growled a scarecrow with a crude body composed of straw, rope and wood, and a carved pumpkin for a head, as flames burned away behind its mouth and eyes. They must know the consequence of their neglect, sinisterly chimed a ghost of a man whose entire body was transparent and detailed with scars and a gouging hole in his gut. And so they will, added a shadow-shrouded being with burning embers in his eyes. Together, all attending figures held out one hand over the cauldron and spoke before releasing what they gripped. With seeds of the pumpkin, with ashes of the departed, with scent of cinnamon, with the essence of Samhain, we declare retribution. They all chimed as the cauldron's depiction of Earth began to sizzle and fizzle before violently frothing and swashing. Fumes and smoke of morphing colours bellowed and wisped into the air as blanketing thick white fog gently flowed out of the cauldron and onto the ground. All around, creatures laughed, cackled, howled and snarled as the sun morphed into a blood-red, pumpkin-faced moon and the skies fogged into a black, starless night. October 31st, 13:25 p.m. GMT. It was just another day on the high street. Another cold, grey, damp and uneventful day. The coffee place was serving patrons with smooth jazz. The citizens' space was open for people to chat and drink. The corner shop was open as customers came in to buy and browse. In the back room, Carl was busy sorting out the stock which had been stored months ago, now ready for the season of the witch. Costumes, both suggestively playful and innocent, decorations and homeware, gimmicky tricks and plastic toys were taken out of a dusty, cracked plastic box and piled onto a cluttered tabletop to be tagged and priced up. While Carl had always enjoyed the Halloween season, he knew it had been in a sad, sorry state as of late. Cheaply made and ridiculously overpriced mock-ups of signs, skeletons, bats, cliché costumes, spindly wigs. It all felt crushing for him for some reason. It was just like any other miserable day outside, until 13:30 p.m. A clap of thunder echoed over the town, and a swirl of black began to creep outwards in a spiraling motion. "What's that?" one person muttered as they saw the phenomenon unfolding. "Surely it can't be a storm. The weather people said it's just rain today," an old woman said as her husband sheltered them both under his umbrella. The sky darkened, the rain stopped, and flame-coloured flashes of thunder blipped and rippled under the black shroud. The wind blew harshly as dead leaves scattered everywhere in all directions. As if by their own accord, or the odour of some presence, the town's church bells rang. And then the graves began turning and tearing. Skeletons, ghosts and zombies emerged from the soil. The crows squawked and flapped. Pumpkins carved their own faces as fires blew from their mouths and eyes, and bodies morphed from underneath them. In surrounding stores, costumes, props, and all sorts of Halloween items came to fiendish life as ghoulish, lavish, spooky, and scary monsters burst from their plastic bags and broke off of their hangers. Shoppers stopped dead in their tracks and screamed in horror as spindly rubber bats and spiders began flying and crawling all around. Monsters snarled, roared, and cackled as they chased and terrified the employees and customers. Out on the streets, scarecrows lumbered with flames in their eyes. Witches flew overhead and dive-bombed as their wands cast flaming embers of magic and mayhem. In the corner shop, a werewolf burst from a plastic costume bag with a furious snarl. Stools were being knocked over. A glass mirror had been shattered as the dressing room curtain was ripped down by claws. People screamed incoherently as the furry hound lunged and attacked. From the office, Carl heard the commotion and rushed to the doorway. In horror, he saw this giant dog-like figure chewing up a customer before it turned its steely eyes on him. In a panic, Carl slammed the door shut and forced a pile of heavy boxes in front of it, blocking the way in. Within the blackened skies emerged a burning, crimson, pumpkin-faced sun, gleefully looking down upon the town. On the town square, a ring of fire flared up before the war memorial as the young witch, the gnarled ghost, and the crudely made scarecrow materialized into existence. All around, the three of them looked at the mayhem their combined spell had unleashed. The witch cracked a wicked smile as she listened to the horror in the screams and the vocals of inhuman monsters. "Music to my ears," she said after a deep inhale. "I'm gonna enjoy this." The scarecrow grinned as the loose hay from his wrists morphed into clawed fingers. "Now this day they will never forget." The ghost glared as he drifted through the walls of the coffee shop. Behind closed doors and windows came muffled shrieks and screams of sheer terror. By the river, people fled the havoc which grew from the town centre and over the bridge. A group of youths ran down the path along the riverbank as a partly mummified ghoul chased them. In the panic, a young woman tripped and fell to the concrete. Pushing her hands against the cold, hard surface, she turned to face her pursuer. Her eyes dripped tears of fright mixed with the sweat and whimpers of horror as she saw the decaying form drag itself closer, inch by inch. But she was caught off guard as a sudden splash from the river revealed a slimy fish man with eyes black like a shark and teeth like that of a barracuda. For miles the darkness spread. From towns to villages, the monsters appeared. For hours, time had ceased moving forwards. In the cities, things went from bad to worse. A giant slime oozed through the streets. Mothmen shrieked as they attacked streetlights and people. Black cats formed packs as they pounced and clawed. In the small village of Hunter's End, the essence of Halloween hung heavy like a mist. Carl, having managed to flee the chaos in town, had shut himself in his house. In the empty fields down the street from his home, most of the neighborhood had gathered. Through the ethereal mist, he could see glowing glints of bonfires from his window. The dancing embers were accompanied by the sounds of fiddles, flutes, and jovial chants. Against his better judgment, Carl left his house and proceeded to the field on foot. In the field, the neighbors started their own celebration, as the end of the world took place around them. Getting closer to the center bonfire, Carl found John, a bright young man whose intellect was significantly higher compared to most. He turned to Carl as he came running. "John, what's going on here? Don't you know what—" "Yes, Carl," John interrupted him. "I know exactly what's going on, and I know how to survive it." In the distance came the rhythmic thump of footsteps and the shrieking cries of a horse. In the distant fog was the shadow of a man mounted on horseback and wielding a sword, but he did not have a head on his shoulders. Through the murky skies, witches and bat-winged creatures glided and circled toward the center of the field. From the bushes, werewolves, zombies, and ghosts emerged into the clearing. The neighbors carried on with their celebrations as terror reeked and echoed from their thudding hearts. A fiddle player felt his nerves shudder and rattle as he tried to keep playing. From all directions, monsters descended upon the gathering. The great onslaught was about to happen. Carl picked up a piece of wood from the bonfire, ready to defend himself, while John stood unarmed, face stern, eyes unafraid, and heart rate steady. Within an inch of striking distance, a boomingly hollow voice commanded, "Stop!" The horsemen grinded to a halt. The zombies ceased lumbering. The Mothmen aborted their attack and flapped in space. The witches slowly descended to the ground. In a black cloud before Carl and John, the mutilated ghost, crooked scarecrow, and the attractive young witch appeared. On the other side of the crowd appeared a second black plume of smoke. Emerging from its depths was a floating, legless shroud with skeleton hands clutching a scythe. Only 2 embers of flame were distinguishable as eyes for this creature. It glided through the crowd as people backed out of its way until it stopped before Carl. Its burning eyes looked into Carl's as it spoke in a menacing whisper. "These are among the few." The witch stepped closer to John and Carl, her crimson eyes scanning Carl suggestively, like she was peering into his soul. "He's right," the scarecrow conceded as his flaming eyes examined John. "Especially this one." "You never stopped celebrating," the witch said in a voice that oozed desire into Carl's ears as her face almost grazed his. Her eyes glistened mischievously. In a spine-tingling growl, the 4th main spectre began floating upwards with its burning glare fixed upon John. Because of your continued devotion to the witching hour, you are all fit to be spared. The other ghouls and beasts steadily began retreating into the thick and swirling fog. But take heed, the shroud added, for as long as mankind continues in its arrogance, we shall return, and next time, all of you, we will collect. The shape finished as its bony hand traced the blade of the scythe before rising into the darkness with a sinister laugh echoing from miles around. Lastly, the other monsters faded out of reality. Until next time. The attractive witch whispered to John as her eyes glinted with an enticing smile and a teasing giggle before she stepped back into the fog. "And I'll be waiting," John said after she vanished. Just like that, all of the other monsters disappeared. The darkness faded into light. The mist evaporated, and the clocks resumed, now showing 10:26 a.m., November 1st. The carnage left its evidence all throughout the land. Grief, trauma, and fear now filled the hearts and minds of many. Since that day, that Halloween, the witching season became revered, respected, upheld. With every autumn, with every moonrise, people carved their pumpkins, hung up their decorations, donned their costumes, and embraced the new and old ways of celebrating, living with the frightful truth, the impossible reality. They were watching, planning. As I bid farewell to you, the audience, embrace the autumn chills. Let yourselves be spooked and welcome the darkness. Happy Halloween.
Narrated by Daniel Miller and edited by Sue Rodwell Smith, Halloween Returns was brought to you by Ouse Valley Radio and sounds from freesound.org.